Yeah.
That I could just read bills on while I'm finishing your cat. And these
And
around.
then on my taxes, it's unreimbursed business expense.
Okay, why don't we have a tiny bit more discussion?
I mean, it's like,
Should I go?
I like it for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Okay, we're
I
live.
can't remember.
Everyone.
I'm like, so, and
Like,
actually,
okay,
this is
I would
actually.
too like to understand.
Well, maybe I should bring my, I have a regular size, but maybe I should
Thank
start
you.
carrying this.
I just like to post the bill.
So, committee, let's
Yeah.
assemble.
Okay, I'm passing around snap.
We're waiting for some fairly minor language changes, and then, to my knowledge, we have three,
But I'm gonna go
major
start
issues
by
on the
Wednesday
table.
morning next day.
yeah, three major issues on the table for discussion. So we'll jump into those until we have election council with us. I don't know if these are in exact chronological order in the bill, but the first, oh, sorry, and this is Senate Economic Development and it's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
12:30-ish on Friday, February 16th. The first question that we have left to now is the municipal exemption for state funded or operated housing. That is an AHS request. AHS is not present now, nor have they communicated directly with the committee till now. So my suggestion would be we strike that section.
Yeah, it can always be.
Or they can come in to find it.
Good idea.
I'm not going to suggest we consider these together, but the two other questions left on the table have sort of raised opposing concerns from different stakeholders. John, you can sit in the witness chair if you want. We're going over two of the other issues that we have that are big issues, and they are not your sections.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So one being the road rule and the other being a property tax exemption for rehabilitated or new construction. I would entertain, and I'd like to hear from everybody, and I'm putting them both out there because we could strike a compromise on the number of feet for the single road and a reduction in the number of years for the property tax exemption. And maybe find some balance. But that's our big discussion on the table. So while we wait for others in Ledge Council, I'd just like to hear from everybody if they thought more about it.
We took it out, we put it in because the tax and the administrations have some strong feelings. I just soon let it in and we'll deal with it in finance.
Mhm,
And there could be plenty of time for more argument, more debate, and also more information,
mhm.
to base the decision that we ultimately make.
Clarkson.
I think so.
Well, but given the amount of time that I've had, I've put thought into it.
Mhm.
So to me, this is a poison pill. And it's distressing because S311 is a critical bill in making long-awaited significant reform to Act 50. It's sad to me that we're here. This past year, environmentalists and housing advocates, which are not necessarily different people, met and arrived at a really good compromise, similar to the compromise in 1987 that resulted in VHCB.
Are you talking about the road rule or the tax?
No, I'm talking about the tax.
Okay,
Very much.
because I don't think that was a subject for this stakeholder group.
The tax exemption?
Right, no, it wasn't.
Okay.
My issue is the tax exemption has been at the last minute added in to what I think is a really good process. And it's a poison pill to that process. That's why that's the problem that I see. So I can't in good conscience vote to use taxpayer dollars to sweeten the pot for private developers. In the couple of hours that I've had to consider this language, I've not seen any evidence of public good from this tax avoidance. The tax avoidance wouldn't be shared with the buyer. Prices are based on what buyers will pay, not the cost to build. The Vermont Housing Improvement Program, also known as VHIP, provides funding of $30,000 to $50,000 projected scope. We're proposing, which is $70,000 per unit to private property owners. So I'm not opposed to providing subsidies to the private sector as long as there's a clear public benefit. And VHIP I should mention is in its short 3-year life, it's one of the least cost programs we have. It would be a better use of $1 million to put it toward VHIB rather than to this avoidance. I also want to be clear that it's not the similarity of this proposal to TIPS. I support TIPS. That's not why I oppose this. I oppose this because there's not a clear public benefit, and I can't vote to spend taxpayer money, which they don't have a choice in paying us, to something like this.
So I'm gonna ask a question before I go to others, and anyone can answer this. If we take out this property tax exemption, are you also okay taking out the shorter road rule for a single road in the spirit of compromise with another member who's having a hard time voting for the 800 feet?
Yes, if necessary, because I believe that is something that will get, proposed or,
Yeah, well, the
discussed
road rule
in
is gonna
other.
get added back in by natural resources anyway, so that's frankly not a give up. It's not a give in terms of a compromise, because it's not gonna go away. This is gonna go away, and it's, I guess one of the things is we've had a short time after, it went back in to discuss the impact. Now, I know I had long discussions with Commissioner Bolio about it, who felt very strongly, and I do have the note, and I don't know if he shared the note with everybody else. I think he sent one to you.
I haven't checked my email.
I haven't received any.
But we haven't had a chance to check our email.
But again, among the things that Commissioner Bolio says, and I won't read everything here, is he's saying that the value freeze is one piece of the solution to the long-term problem. If we can incentivize additional organic general grand list growth, we'll have a target tax base and reduce property taxes regardless of spending decisions by districts. I would note this is one solution for the long term, not the only solution. The cost ramps up over the next 5 years, so the FY25 consensus foregone revenue estimate between tax and JFO is only $1 million. The FY26 estimate is only 1.8 million, so this solution is not going to put significant additional pressure on the acute problem of the education fund that currently sits at over 200 million. Cost savings for the freeze for an individual project could be in the range of 7 to 8% range of construction costs. More if municipality opts into the freeze as well. If that ends up leading to a 7 to 8% increase in units, you'd be talking 200 units a year at a cost of about $80,000 per unit, and $12 to $14 of private investment for every dollar of public investment. So my take is, let's not sacrifice one of the tools we can use to help serve the long-term education fund problem, because we're worried about it making the acute problem in the education fund worse than the long-term solution as such a modest price tag for FY25 and FY26. So, I mean, that is just briefly the rationale that Commissioner Bolio and others have as to why this is a good thing to add in at this point, and has really a very, very modest impact on the education fund in the short term.
And this will get done in finance.
And it will get done in more detail in finance.
I would rather use that modest amount for the VHIP program, because the savings are not necessarily going to the buyer or the renter, they're going to the developer. So
Well, they're going to whoever pays the property tax. So the renter pays the property tax through their rent. I mean, someone pays the property tax that,
but the
they don't
initial-
have to book it.
but-
if
but
they're
the-
paying
This isn't
rent.
in, this bill probably will not go to finance.
I think there's probably there's a lot of tax pieces.
The property tax
Yeah,
transfer
the tax
proposal will
credits
send
which
it
go
to
with
finance.
pros.
But the whole property tax transfer proposal is gonna send it to finance.
Where the property tax transfers it.
So
So
like a tip, but instead of the savings going to a government, they're going to the private sector.
Yeah.
And the prices will still be high because they're based on.
and the benefit some of us see in TIFs is that when that tax break is done, you have increased the grand left value.
Correct.
I see those
Yes.
benefits too.
Can I ask a different question and have everyone answer it, which is, I think we can appreciate that if you gave this exemption for a property for 2 years, you're essentially exempting their time to do the rehabilitation. You're not giving them a tax break for some fancy new property that on the 3rd year, you're essentially saying, this is your fit up time. This is your time to rehabilitate the property without paying a property tax. And for many, that seems fair, whether you're renting a commercial space or whatever, because no one's occupying the property at that time, you are improving it.
I had proposed a 3-year exemption.
Okay, so are you putting your 3-year exemption on the table?
I had already done that.
Oh, there was 2 3-year things, there's something else that's 3 years.
I proposed a 3-year,
Okay.
timeframe on the freeze of the assessed value.
That,
You
right,
Really construct, that's what we're talking about, that
And-
exemption.
well, we don't have the commissioner, I think it's fair to say, when we consider that in finance, we'd be looking at much lower numbers, because by that 3rd year, you might finally be getting a valuable property, the assessors reassessed it.
But I thought you just suggested 2 years.
Either way,
Oh, okay.
are you?
So you
I
think
haven't
the
put a
project
proposal.
will be done in 2 years?
I have no
I-
idea, because there's no labor for construction right now, but
That's the point,
Yeah.
3 years, why 3 years does, if you're gonna cut it back, then, I would be willing to go back to 3 years, provided we do something with the road rule for
Okay.
that, and come up with a compromise number, which we go, let's say 1,000 feet now. And, instead of the 800 and 2,000, I don't like that one
Mhm.
bit,
right.
frankly. But that's where I'd be willing to meet in the middle.
Can people live with some true compromise on these 2 sections?
So what is the compromise we're looking at? 2 years and
3 years.
Randy just put 3 years
Three
and
years.
1,000
Is
feet.
what I had proposed.
Right, and then on the road rule, instead of 800 feet, 1,000 feet, and, my desire for is 2,000 feet, which is what we talked about previously.
I could live with that.
Finances, obviously, regardless of what we do on 3 years, 5 years, or 100 years, it's still gonna go to finance to be
Yeah.
debated on the other piece regarding the tax exemptions.
I can live with that.
Not been very clear on not prone to take money out of the ed fund.
Right.
Well, and the second part of my proposal had been to take it out of the general fund and not deal with the funds.
I
I don't even know how, those,
Yeah.
that would be hard to draft. and
Well, that would
how
be,
it-
you would have
That's
to
what the last business.
yeah, grant out of the general fund.
Again, that's something I think that the finance committee could decide
I
to
think
do.
the finance committee should figure out a way to not have it come out of the ed fund.
Well, what the finance committee could do is hear more proposals on how to increase the revenue and get the administration a little closer to our table about how we find millions and millions of dollars for the ed fund right now. And the more cooperation I think we demonstrate going into that conversation,
Okay.
the better. And I think you're looking at probably the 3 most open Senate finance members to this provision at all. I think everyone in the administration knows they're running into Senator McDonald. Yeah, I don't want to go on, but people who really don't like tax breaks. So really, the 3 finance members are just asking that we maintain a unanimous vote, make a compromise, and get this onto the committee of jurisdiction to look at what the ultimate impact to the fund would be.
I'm gonna have to go because I'm not sure we were able to move the doctor.
Right. And
Dr. Dane wasn't there when
yes,
I swept in.
we don't want to interrupt anything that Anne needs, so we can't really go past 1:15. And me
No,
later
I
on
need to get, I need to get lunch for.
I know, that's right. Good, yeah,
But, I mean, I think we've got a reasonable compromise.
I think we do too.
The tax, all the tax stuff is gonna get looked at, it's gonna get looked at in terms of this year's budget, this year's tax needs. All the tax credits are gonna get looked at in terms of budgets. We may very well be able to come up with another way. And,
Yeah,
I'm inclined to your thinking, but that if there's such a, doing so well,
Yeah.
why
Right,
not just give it more? But we'll take a look.
right, and it would have been nice to put effort into documenting what we already did. I mean, I was asking,
It's
no, it's coming.
well, on paper, I do think we heard some really great news about the VHIP program. I don't want to engage.
it's all on
No,
their
no,
website.
the VHIP program is wonderful,
Mhm.
but we did other things too that are,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But it would have been helpful to have looked at that,
I mean, some of them are
Well,
just
we
now.
right?
Coming-
But
coming
others
to
are, things are happening.
So-
I just, coming last minute and it's being such a big deal makes me inclined to not support it. I mean, in addition to just the reasons I don't support it, and when we got rid of it initially, I was happy that that we got rid of it,
Mhm.
and I haven't had a
Me
chance
too.
to really think about it.
I think the question that was asked of some of us was, the only way this gets to finance is if it starts here.
Right, but it doesn't have to be unanimous. I can vote against it and you all vote for it and it still goes.
So you would vote against the whole housing bill
Honestly,
for this piece?
unfortunately, I don't want to.
Okay.
I feel like I don't have a choice.
Okay, I don't want you to feel backed into a corner, like
Well,
I
I
might get
do,
this out for
but-
one.
It's too late.
I think we did come up with a strong compromise that, helps with the road rule.
This type of funding I find not good for the public. So if we do lesser amount of things that are not good for the public, it's still not good for the public. I don't wanna regret it.
And, we won't regurgitate the argument, but part of the argument is, we believe it is good for the public because it adds to the grand list. It will be one more thing that will increase the value and work towards solving the long-term problem, which is the bigger issue.
In the way that it's similar to a TIF, yes, I agree with you, but a TIF has more structure. And this doesn't have any structure.
I think, so we won't belabor it further because we do have to move on. But I think you could count on the fact that the majority of this committee is also in finance to put more structure on it and to look for revenue sources that would match it, because we are looking at a 200 plus, $300 million education fund problem that we plan to solve with lots of proposals, and being able to extend on a proposal that in 3 years probably costs, maybe up to $5 million if a lot of people take advantage of it. We're looking for revenues that offset quite a bit of that, and I think there's value in the administration being a little closer to coming to the table because they have helped create a need for more revenue by asking for this proposal.
Understand, I'm new, it doesn't make sense to me to vote for something that I don't like and count on a future committee taking it out. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
But
that's fine, and it is, we don't have a lot of time to consider. I would just posit that we have a lot of other pieces we care about in this housing bill, and it might send a bigger signal than you wanna make voting against the entire bill for a piece that is squarely the jurisdiction of another committee that is almost guaranteed to change.
and put it in the other committee. That is not my intent. That is not the message I intend to send, and I'm trying to be very clear about the message that I'm sending.
Okay,
This is a great bill. That's why it distresses me to be in this position, because this bill is a really good follow-up to last year's bill. And I want them to succeed. I want to have housing without hurting the environment. I want our economy to be strong, but this last minute addition is just something I can't swallow.
okay. We do still need to look at John, are you representing everyone else, maybe decide to be on the final changes that were made?
I think that Ellen will be down here. But I can jump through mine real quick if you guys wanna see that.
Okay, let's see that. We'll have a final conversation about the whole bill. And we'll try to take a vote by 1:15,
So,
by 1:10, I don't know. We have
I
to
would
eat.
really like to leave. by
Yes, so
1.
we'll speed through this and be done as soon as possible.
okay, so first updates, section 53, this was disclosure of the confidential landlord certificate. Broke this out into Vermont Emergency Management for emergency management and communication purposes, and then it's DHCD and any contracted agency for statewide housing needs assessment, purpose of that assessment. Don't think there's anything controversial there. Jumping to section 63. These are the only changes that I had in my sections. 63 is age restricted housing. We received some language to update this piece about not licensed as not a licensed long-term care facility. We can call out the particular statutes that govern this, so we now have updated more detailed language to say what that licensure is. And then the last piece that we have is on the next section, which is our notice of rent increase. If you could jump to that. So the first thing is to remove that subsidized language to say an owner of privately owned age-restricted residential property, similar to what we just talked about above, licensure requirement. And then this is added, except as provided in subsection C of this section. So this provides an exemption to the requirement of rent notice updates for, under subsection C, any rent increase at any publicly subsidized affordable housing that is already monitored by a state or federal agency or rent limitations. The idea behind this is that these are already governed by a bunch of restrictions and requirements of notices. So trying to ensure that there aren't duplicative regimes governing this rent notice increase. That's the extent of the changes that I have to my sections. Happy to take any questions, but if you're jumping to something else, I see Alan's here too.
Both. These sections were less kind of head scratching and controversial going into this afternoon. Are people okay with where we are?
Yeah, on these sections, yeah.
Thank you, John.
Sure. Jump.
Does anyone have a bigger time constraint? You or Kirby?
Oh, yeah, Kirby has somewhere to be, right?
Senator
No,
Coe.
do you need for anything? I was just hearing Casey's.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. I need reminders right now.
I'm resting too.
Right. Okay, so we have no changes to Kirby's section. We have no changes to Kirby's sections. Anyone need anything from Kirby? Okay,
Well, we had the change of the 3 years.
well, oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
But you might not.
So can you stay for a little bit longer? Or do you wanna have that conversation now before we go to Alec?
We have a compromise on the table that Kirby needed to hear.
Well, so I'm gonna throw one more thing out. Like the day of many suitcases that you could choose from. So that, I as chair certainly think there's a lot of value to getting a unanimous vote out of committee. I heard one compromise to sort of meet in the middle on both. My other suggestion would be that we take both out and we take out that property tax exemption. And we take out any road rule restriction below 2,000 feet. And my goal with that would be to get a unanimous vote on this bill as well.
We understand again, what did you propose?
I'm proposing that we leave the road rule at 2,000 feet and we take out this property tax exemption piece for now. This specific one about rehabilitating or new construction being exempt.
I think that's gonna reduce the amount of bipartisan support that you get.
I think the administration could still make their case to Senate Finance further down the road. It would just start here where, we are legislators and we're sort of,
So
I'm looking for strong support from this committee first and foremost. To make a different compromise, which is to remove both sections and do 2,000 feet and no property tax change on that particular.
Well, 2,000 feet is a significant change, when it gets in terms of that resources.
I will
See that
say,
being a benefit.
my other understanding is this property tax exemption has support from over half of the members of House Ways and Means. So the House might also be a place where the administration could start laying the groundwork to consider that and to put more meat on the bones for them to consider while we're working on finding money for the education fund. So I don't think it would die. I think it would be hard to revive it in the Senate, but I think it lives another day in the House.
So there are 2 proposals.
Yes.
In the property tax exemption, there's the proposal to exempt property transfer tax and blighted properties. Is everyone okay with that?
I didn't hear any concern on that.
Because there are 2 proposals there, and I wanna make sure that we're just focused on the second one, which is freezing the assessed value.
Property transfer tax, we have added money and it doesn't go to the ed fund. It goes to those allocated groups that we've discussed.
It doesn't come out of it.
wasn't.
Right,
Yes,
It's lost revenue.
so we're okay with that. So now
now the
there's,
one that's similar to the TIFs that I am
Yes,
subjected.
It's the
I
free,
mean, we should
That's-
be, no,
that's-
because it's the
that's-
property transfer tax.
but didn't you just suggest we take out
Both?
that both
No, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah, no,
That's
I'm
what
sorry.
trying to clarify.
No, not the transfer.
So there's a value freeze and a property transfer tax exemption.
Right,
Right,
so we take out the value freeze, the property tax piece.
Yes. The
That
property
hits the education
we
fund
don't like.
at a potentially unknown amount after several years versus the pretty clear 400K property transfer tax, because we're talking about a one-time transfer of sale of a blighted property to someone who might fix it
And
up.
that's the $400,000.
That's 400,000
Others,
yeah.
money.
to a fund that we're replenishing with lots of additional money.
which gets housing on the
We
market.
get housing on the market.
Right, but folks could build a house for themselves.
No, but that's not, that's what they're
Still gets
taking out.
housing on the market.
They're taking out the freezing the property
Right, the
value.
one that I have the most.
Yeah, that one's out.
So could we agree on taking out the value freeze on the property tax and the road rule under 2,000 feet in order to move this bill with the full support of the committee?
I'm not gonna speak for both of us on this side of the table, but I was happier with the 1,000-foot exemption to go to Randy's concern. And I understand that other committees are gonna have input on this. But for me, the 1,000 feet was pretty good landing spot.
Right. I do think both pieces have the potential to live another day in other committees considering this. So I'd ask that in the spirit of really truly compromising, we take both off the table in full. And I appreciate your amicability on this side of the table in general.
It's good to be.
We're not the amicable twos over here.
I guess. Not my usual.
That's pretty.
Well, in 10 minutes, you may turn it to something.
Probably will.
So I'm hearing
So
amicability.
taking out, going to back to the 2,000-foot rule and taking out the freeze on the assessed value of new construction.
Mhm.
I could live with that.
I can't,
You can't.
I cannot.
With the 2,000 feet.
That's the fee, as you say, gonna change anyway.
Oh, you just can't live with taking out the governors.
But I think that's one of the very few things, very good, that is an important thing that we're doing is focus on the long-term problem rather than the short-term problem. And I think it's an important piece of that.
I will say, I don't wanna put Sabina on the spot, but so much of what we're operating with is consensus agreement from the stakeholder group, and they landed on 2,000
They
feet.
landed on that as far as the support that we dealt with.
Mhm.
Well, he's okay with that, but that's not his problem. His problem is the tax.
The problem is taxing the, yeah, I'm looking to compromise even though it's below the amount in the report.
Right,
I'm not interested in compromising on throwing away one of the few tools that we have, and we have a strong recommendation from the tax commission, which, on which I'm basing a lot of my belief as to where that is
Yes.
going to go, that we're actually doing something to solve not the short-term problem, but the long-term problem.
mhm. I don't know if the commissioner wanted to say something. I saw Dan Shatters.
No, I guess I probably can't add anything other than, yeah, I mean, both items will come back. I mean, we obviously would be inclined to, the 2,000 is what we feel was already the compromise number. And so to go further and, taking a value freeze is tough. That said, there would be another opportunity to argue for the value freeze in finance. If it didn't make it through here, we could talk to finance about adding value freeze back.
One thing about it also, just the support of the bill that you have, going in the first place, was
Yeah.
now we've got this bill done.
Right.
Taking that piece out that deals with long-term increase in value
Mhm.
will decrease the amount of overall support that we have for the bill coming out of this committee.
Right. So I'm
I
gonna,
don't think that's healthy.
mhm.
I don't think it's a good thing to do.
I'm gonna take one more moment to ask either of you if you could live with a different metric for compromise, which would be either 2,500 feet on the road rule or 1 year for the tax exemption.
Well, the question on 1 year for the tax exemption that I have
I'm not.
is, can you do the kind of work that you need in order to increase the value? Because that's part of the notion is that a value increase occurs. And I'm just concerned that 1 year, I said I was willing to compromise from 5 down to
Right.
3 and then to as little as 2. that's a lot of movement, I think.
Senator Harrison, could you live with
I
2
did-
years and 1,000 feet?
If it was so important, why didn't we hear about it earlier? Yesterday? I mean,
Well, I think it's because I know that Senator Rand Pensdale and I heard about it, 3 days ago?
I don't
Began
remember.
a discussion of it.
Well,
And part of the issue is we hadn't gotten fleshed out the positions of the tax department and some of the other input that we got that helped us move toward that decision.
Mhm.
okay,
And again, I think it would have been helpful, obviously, if you and everybody else had it sooner.
right.
No question about that. But, now that I've got it, I've been digesting it for several days. Had the discussion with Senator Rand Hinsdale, had a discussion separately on the tax issue, when the tax department has got, the tax issue, but the finance committee would be looking at it again in more detail when it got over there. So I recognize that
Mhm.
that we are at the end of the process, but that also gave me a feeling that there's a safety valve that committee would be looking at it in considerably more detail on the financial angle
Right.
than we would be able to in the time that we had.
To be
So
fair
that
to
also
Senator
gave me comfort.
Brock, as well, I just wanna say, this is everyone's first time looking at the road rule change as well. That was me trying to be responsive to everything I've heard this week. And we didn't take this up yesterday, nor did we really bug legislative council on this yesterday. So from Wednesday, when I made sure Senator Cummings was okay moving this forward to consider in finance, this was really our first opportunity to look at both changes. So Senator Brock is willing to make compromise on something he's just seen that was suggested. We've all seen both of these pieces as suggested language from other or outside stakeholders who are coming before us this week for kind of a final path at where we land.
I didn't, the last time I saw the tax proposal, it was months ago or weeks ago. So
It was a couple weeks ago.
I don't,
Right.
yeah, we took it out, and when we took it out, I didn't pay any more attention to it.
Right.
So I see the situation differently.
So I mean, I still want to get to a unanimous vote on the bill. And right now, I think I'm looking at a situation where I lose one of you on the road rule and one of you on the property tax piece. So are you willing to accept the 2,000-foot road rule if we take out the property tax?
Yeah, I think I already said.
Okay.
Which is-
But you,
but
then
they
you
aren't
don't want,
able to.
okay, I was like, but then there was
Yeah,
something,
I'm willing to compromise on the length of the road rule.
okay.
I'm absolutely willing to do that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to compromise on the loss.
So you'd be a no, if we took this.
But then to your point, to me, this tax could be taken up in finance and end up the way you prefer it.
It could be, but I think it is more likely to be successful if it comes out of this committee favorably. On the other hand, I think the road rule is much more likely to be modified adverse to a position that I want when it goes to natural resources.
Okay.
And that's just based on the experience of knowing what's happened to that piece of legislation before.
So I will put 2 years of this tax exemption on the table and see if that could earn your vote, but I think
But keeping the road rule the way it is.
keeping the road rule at,
At the lower amount.
could
Yeah.
we do it
I-
at 1,000 and
Yeah,
2?
instead of 2,000, cut it in half. And that's also taking the
But-
number of years that the tax exemption would be from 5 down to 2.
I am okay with 1,000 feet and going to 2 years.
I think we've seen actually more finite numbers for 2 years. And we recognized it's a pretty modest impact because that probably just allows them to get the construction done. 1 year is kind of like you just break ground and just get through your permits, basically, as we know. And 3 years might have some unknowns, but
I
if
have-
we could,
I have to leave in 4
Okay.
minutes, and I'm not sure that we're ever gonna get complete consensus.
Mhm.
I think we can with, I've thrown a number of compromises out on the table to help us get there.
I think 2 years feels pretty modest, just in the sense that, these bills move further with all of our other pieces that we're asking for to support housing to the extent that we have a united front coming out of the committee. So I would really value, I'm asking you as the chair, after weeks and weeks of work, to live with a pretty meaningful compromise.
2 years isn't gonna result in anything because 2 years is your construction time and you've got the April, what is it, March 29th value or April 1st value. The value won't change in the first year.
So you're really giving them fit up and construction time without a new property tax increase.
Yeah, all right. But now on the road roll, we're at 1,000.
1,000 and 2,000.
I can live with that.
I want river corridors.
You will get your river corridors in a completely separate bill. I think that's being voted out today or Tuesday.
Eventually we'll have to mash them all together.
All right.
I really appreciate this exchange. This is exactly what we're gonna need to do for the rest of session. So I think this is a really strong exercise and I wish I gave you all more time. So that's completely on me and I appreciate how hard this feels. Second session of Miami usually feels harder because we're on such a strict timeline, but I really appreciate this.
And the point is that by coming to a compromise on it, we're happy we've achieved that magic result that legislators do, in which everybody goes away mad.
Yeah. Or maybe not mad, but unhappy.
Unhappy.
Politics is the art of knowing people at a rate they can.
I know, I would just rather be unhappy earlier.
Yes, and that's on me. That's on me.
We were unhappy earlier
Yeah.
and we took it out. There we are, we did that already. We
But I
revisited.
noted and I should have
Alright.
come to everyone.
Well, and this is my values
Mhm.
and my constituents' values.
Yes,
And public money should
Yes.
be spent for public benefit.
and I think
So-
you held the line extremely well because we have an education fund problem and you
We have a
brought
huge
that
education.
here.
Alright.
So,
All right, so
Good deal,
who's moving it?
well, okay,
I would, it's good,
We have
I
other-
gotta ask 2.1, is that right?
so
No, you're making two, LJ goes
Yeah.
down to legislative capital. Please state clearly what
Mhm.
changes are being requested.
yes, can I call it the road rule or do you need the
Yeah.
section? At 1,000 feet for a single road, 2,000 feet for multiple roads, and 2 years on the property tax freeze.
Reducing it from 5 years to 2 years.
Yes. Are those things that we can vote with contingent on those changes?
Sure, it's gonna be draft 3.1.
Okay.
You also are getting rid of the AHS language.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry,
Okay,
yes.
is there anything else?
I don't think so. We haven't had a chance to look at your changes.
Well, I
That's all.
only changed like.
The one,
three
the two words.
So-
Should we look at the two words?
Okay.
And then contingent on the agreement we just made, we would vote on draft 3.1 that we have discussed, the language changes.
And do you want to do that now, or given how?
We wanna do that now.
Up against it.
And
or do you
can.
want to wait till-
We're gonna do it
Well,
now.
I got half my committee.
Yes, we're gonna do it right now.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes,
Senator Brock,
yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Harrison, yes. Senator Ron Hinsdale,
Resoundingly, yeah. Thank you so much, committee.
5-0.
People can celebrate by eating lunch. Thank
No,
you.
no time.
Oh my gosh.
That's why
I gotta-
peanut butter pretzels.
Okay,
Wow.
thank you. Oh, yes.
May I-
So if it's okay with everybody, I'll be the reporter.
Do you wanna? I think that would.